Greetings, fellow travelers. We are about to start on Ingray. Ings in English, but Ingray, as we always referred to him. And it's a very complicated painting. But as you know, I like complicated, so we're going to do it. I've just finished pink epoxy, and I painted her like a Vermeer. And there's a little toning difference I have to do on it. And I'm not going to do that online. I'm going to just do it because I picked up one small little area that I have to highlight. And there really is no reason to bore you with those details, but she's finished, and I'm talking about a 15-minute highlight change, so that's all. Nothing serious. Pardon me. But we are starting on Ingray. And an Ingray, well, Ingray was an incredibly gifted artist, and he did this woman called, really what it is Woman at Her Bath. I've always referred to the painting as. I've never done this painting before. However, I'm very familiar with it. I may have done it in graphite many years ago. Possible, but I'm just not 100% sure, because it's long sold if it was, because it's records over 20 years ago were on old computers, and I'm sure it's somewhere, but it could be on like a 3.5-inch floppy disk or something. So I don't even think they have those anymore on computers. So anyway, I'd have to find it, and it doesn't really matter anyway because it was done in graphite. But this is a study in skin tones, and I think although she's nude, you really can't see anything, so I don't think Twitch should have a problem with it. And it is an Ingray, for heaven's sake, so it certainly isn't considered provocative in a naughty sense in any words. So that being said, I'm going to begin. Now again, I'm going to start off the picture in Grisaille, which I want to do, as you well know, and I'm going to put down the first little coverage, and in order to do that, I'm going to use chromium oxide. I like chromium oxide as a base because it's a little bit blue-green, and it works. Now, guys like Renoir, etc., used more of a gray. I like using a blue-green, and the reason simply is that look at the back of your hand. When you look at a vein, that's the color I'm looking for. In a tone. It doesn't have to be exactly that color, but in a tone, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put a little bit of that down, and then I'm going to commence covering this lovely woman at her bath in paint. There we go. Move the light a little bit. One of the things I must say about pink epoxy is that there was some very, very subtle toning down, and it didn't seem to pick up very well under the lights. I don't know why. Other paintings have done well, but the subtlest toning didn't pick up, and so you saw it, but I wasn't quite happy with the reproduction on camera because of that reason. So consequently, I'm going to post it on Instagram when it's completely finished and a much higher resolution. I'm going to use my my Nikon DSLR and get a great shot of it. And then I'll post it, and then I'm sure you'll see it. But as it stands now, although you see most of the toning, you don't see it all. And because of that, you don't get the full impact of the Vermeer. And really, I don't really know why, because the camera has been quite good on other projects. Now, it may be the size, but again, I've done the size as well, so I don't know why, but regardless, I was a little disappointed in the reproduction on film, on camera, and it may simply mean that I need better cameras. It could also mean that. So, be that as it may, I'm going to make sure you see the picture with the subtle toning in it, so you get the idea just how much of a Vermeer that it really and truly looks like. And I do know, I've said this to people, and I do know that the people have already said, no, it looks exactly like a Vermeer. Well, yes, it does, but when they see it, then they see it in person, and they say, oh, I see what you mean. And I go, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And so it may mean a purchase of new cameras. And I don't know if that's because of just the toning on the piece, or frankly, I just don't know. I just really don't know. But on to in gray. As you can see, this is a full body picture, and I'm quite excited to do it, frankly, because I really and truly have done a lot of nudes over the years, and I was very disappointed that Twitch has such stringent rules, because I'm talking about works of art, you know, in museums, and it's well, it is what it is, but I can see their point too. They don't want pornography showing up, but you know, this is about as far away from pornography as you can get. So, not to mention that, you know, pornography gets very boring in a very short period of time. And people who draw it know that. And to the people who draw it, no problem, I could care less, but it's certainly not high on my list of things I want to draw. In fact, it's not even on the list, so there you go. If that makes sense. And I hope it does. Because frankly, it doesn't take a lot of talent to do that stuff. Once you get the a few poses down, it's just variations on a theme. Hence the boredom part, I guess. What for? And by the way, I do draw a line between erotica and pornography, because I have done erotic pictures over the years. And that's a different thing altogether. Where am I here? I drew this a few days ago, and from my sketches, and it has fallen out of my head. So I have analyzed it, but I just missed. I must not have taken real attention to a cue down here that I don't know. I didn't put a note on it, so I don't know. I'll figure it out. Not to worry. Not to worry. Hey, what? All that. So as you can see, I do the grisaille first. For those who may have just been looking in for the first time. Artistically, it's been a very good week. I am quite pleased with what has isn't that odd? Let me just see in the reference photo what exactly is going on there. Aha. Aha. Wow. I don't know why. It must have been interrupted. Oh, happens. That light comes over to here. And as I said, this is a rather complicated bit of art, but it is by no means. I must have been interrupted because I just noticed I sketched that wrong down there. Well, I may have been wrong. I don't know. Maybe that's what I saw when when you sketch it, you're looking at bits of it and then you put it together. At least I do. That's how I do it. For some unknown reason. I think it is out to here. No? It is right. Okay. Now the part of this painting that is going to prove very consuming in terms of time is the towel on her head. If you look at a close-up of it, it is without doubt the most complicated piece of drawing that I have seen in some time. But not to be dismayed. I will definitely get it done right. If I don't cover the project with water first. Now it's going to take me a few minutes to get back into it, and one of the reasons is I just completed a large watercolor, and my head then now is in transparency, and I have to work that out of my head. I usually do a transition piece before I go back into another medium, but normally. But in this case, I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to go right into it. Beg your pardon. Now, my options, as this is a large painting, are to do like just a large section at a time. And having analyzed the piece, the reason Ingray is a master artist is he truly, like Bouguereau, had a full understanding of color in terms of human skin, and in this case, the tone shift very, very deftly. So I'm going to do a little bit at a time, and God, my God. It's so good that it's scary. So, I have again picked something that is incredibly complicated. But, as you well know, that's what I like. There'll be a lot of glazing on this picture because it's the only way I'm going to get that incredible color. And the first pass of color will be pre-mix before I get into the final tones. I'm going to cover those with extender so it doesn't die on me, as I will with the green I mixed up, because I'm going to need some of that. And I'm going to fire in a little bit of oh, where are you? No. Ah, Quin Orange. Quin Orange, even though to get those skin tones I'm looking for. Now, Ingray was a French painter, or Belgium, I'm not quite sure. And his painting style, although different, is as complicated as the Dutch masters were. And that's why I want to do it. Because he, as a matter of fact, his skin toning probably is even better, if you can believe that. So, without further ado, I'm going to give it my best shot. And then for some god-awful reason that I don't get it quite what I'm looking for, I will stamp my feet and scream at the moon, do all those neat things. I'm just kidding. Oh, God. Now, he had a warmer tonal range, and it's not here yet. I'm a mixin', not to worry. I'm a mixin', but you know what? His tonal range is warmer, so I'm going to go and put in a little bit of yellow oxide. Not ochre, yellow oxide, to warm up the mix. I think that'll do. And yes, it does. And yes, it is wonderful knowing your colors. It's the only way to go. So a slight pass as I put down the first coats. And you're quite right if you're going, God, how small is that brush? Well, as I just explained, the brush is small because the tones change so quickly that there really isn't any other option way to do it on this size board. And this is being done on a hardboard masonite panel with spray-on gesso, which is incredibly smooth, and I want to keep it that way. Lots of time to put texture in if you need it. In this case, these guys basically painted very smoothly. And they were painting in oil. Needless to say, they were oil painters, so you're able to do that in oils. But the techniques that I'm using seem to be able to mimic oil extremely well, and I'm very, very happy that it took a while, but by Jove, I think I've got it. So, happy days. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days are here, they're here again. Happy days are here again. Now, if you want to know anything about art, or you want to know anything about technique, or you know anything about colors, or anything else, please just give me a shout. And you see, this is what I'm talking about. He moved in from warm to cool. Up here, cool from warm in one small section. So you've got to follow that if you want to get the skin tones that he did on the money. And let me tell you, this is why I'm using a smaller brush, because the changes are so subtle. Oh God, what happened there? Something was on the brush. Something. Payne's Gray, I take it. A little bit more water. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days are here again. My God. Mind you, every time I start one of these things, you hear me say this. My God. And the truth of the matter is that if it wasn't really hard, I wouldn't be doing it. Because challenge, you know? The challenge. Now, also, I'm noticing that I need to gray some of this down. I don't mean gray down, I just mean gray it down. So in order to do that, I'm looking for my burnt umber, which isn't there, okay, which is somewhere, maybe over here. Ah, yes, of course, burnt umber. And I've started a new palette of colors, and as I told you before, I always do this, and I stick with it for basically the whole painting. And the reason is as acrylic dries, you can simply follow your color streams as they come on. And that's why. No mysteries, no nothing, that's just it. And again, this is just the first pass. The first pass. happy days are here again. This will take a lot of layering. Which are glazes. That's what layering is. It's just glazing. But to get these subtle tonal differences, I'm going to have to glaze a lot. But that's okay, because that's what makes the piece. That's the secret to making acrylics look like oils, is the glazing. I also might admit that developing quite a fondness for acrylics now that I didn't have before. I frankly preferred oil for years and years, and the reason's simple, and is simply the blending ability of it. And I never basically developed this technique until I really applied myself to it, and now I'm very confident in the technique because it works. But I hadn't been for a long time. So I did acrylic paintings, especially when I was in Belize. I did a lot of acrylic paintings, but I never really did this kind of painting while I was in Belize, because what people want down there, especially, well, mainly expats, they want animals behind me on the walls. One I brought back of a ocelot. That's kind of what they wanted. Sharks, that kind of thing. So that's what I painted, and I did them all in acrylic. But I did them all in acrylic based on standard techniques that people who draw animals use. I didn't venture too far. That's what I'm saying. From the norm. It wasn't until I came home from Belize, coming up to a year ago, that I started to experiment a little, and the first experiments were in colored pencil, so I could see the colors that I wanted, and using a wax base, see exactly how I wanted to go about it. And I did a number of colored pencils, and then when I got to the point where I was very comfortable in mixing the colors that colored pencils bring up different flesh tones, I switched over to acrylics, and now that I've developed this technique, I'm very happy with it. And I'm not teaching this technique mainly because of not so much the technique, it's the color. You have to be really adept at color, and I find that a lot of raw talent out there, etc., but not a lot of color knowledge, and that's something that you learn from experience. Really, you just can't pick it up and say, oh yeah, I know color now. You have to basically mix colors, and it's a very complicated thing. And the reason it is for one thing, from different manufacturer to manufacturer, there's slight differences in the colors produced, and if you're not using the person on YouTube who shows you how to do it, then using their brand of paint, then it might be a little off, and on and on and on. So I don't teach it really that's the main reason. But by the same token, I have got some students coming through that are well on their way. well on their way. And that is wonderful because they're getting there. And they're getting there through constant practice, which frankly is the only way you'll ever get really good at art. Constant practice. And that's really the secret to it. Practice. Your eye will show you, and a good variety of colors. Now, unlike a lot of guys who teach, I subscribe to the buy the color, if you're able to, I should say. Buy the color. And the reason I say that is because it's a constant. Even though you're blending it out of the tube, it's a constant. And that's kind of what you want, because it's hard enough getting subtle tone differences and whatnot. And without starting off each batch, which is a little, because you're mixing it over and over again in acrylic and it's drying, mixing it over and over and over again. And that's why I advocate that as a good first step, because of that constant, which is it coming right out of the tube. I don't mean to say you'd use the paint right out of the tube. Nobody does that. Or very rarely. Well, you do if it's a Payne's Gray or something. But I mean when you're color mixing. And I think you have much more success because you're not always starting. Because the trouble with acrylic is you really have to know how to mix color, because you're constantly mixing the bloody stuff, because it's constantly drying on you. And no matter what you do, and I mean that, no matter what you do, you're going to have to mix more up. I don't care if you're using a stay wet palette or what you're doing. Oil, you can throw it in the freezer and it's good forever. But acrylic, nope. You're SOL. Now, it sounds like the Third World War. It's the 24th of May weekend, and you're hearing people with home firecracker systems and all that neat stuff out there gleefully paying tribute to the late Queen Victoria, because this was always called Victoria Day weekend years ago. Now it's called something else. And I don't really know what it's called, but it's always been the Victoria Day weekend to me. So. Now it looks a bit like a zebra right now, I know, but not to worry. I'm getting these underpaint coats in. Because as I said, he changes color like he changes his underwear, this guy. And he knows. And the reason you know that is because this type of painting from the back isn't very common, and one of the reasons is the constant change in color as you go through the rib cage and the spine, and oh god, it's never ending. So you really have to know what you're doing. And also in his day, you needed a model and you needed a constant light source, all of which it's obvious that he had. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to get the colors. And I don't even remember now, I don't think they even had electric lights back then, so it had been daylight. So his paintings reflect that reality. And man, mind you, daylight is truly the be-all end-all of color painting, because you get to see the colors. That's the beauty. You really get to see the color. And although lights that I use here are good compared to daylight, they're as good as you're going to get, frankly. But that doesn't mean that they're as good as daylight. Simple as that. No, no, and more no. Not quite, old boy. Not quite. Well, I must say that just making sure you can see the color and the blends. Also, this is a bit of a change for me lately because there's no lightness required. None. It's the back. So it's strictly a figure painting exercise. Which is, you know, like anything, as much as I enjoy doing all the portraits and whatnot, change is as good as the rest, you know? And I've been wanting to apply this technique now for a while to see just how far I can take it. And so far, I'm pleased. God, it sounds like that movie outside. Remember the Last of the Mohicans or something? Great movie. So, I've got all my colors lined up, and now I'm going to mix up just a tad of flesh with lots of white in it to see if I can get some of those subtle tones. Because he literally went from spot to spot. I mean, quite literally. Now, his technique would have been different in oil painting, okay? He would have had the luxury of a much more controlled blend than I do, doing it this way. But regardless, it's that's the whole point of this technique, is to mimic an oil painting technique, and that's why I developed it, really. And by Jove, I quite like it. Now you can see why now I'm talking about using a small brush on this. When you have tone ranges that are so different in such small areas, if you use a large brush, what happens is you kind of lose the ability to change tone really quickly and get microtoning in. I call it microtoning. It's simply just changing your tonal pattern over in a very small area. And I originally did this to figure it out was because I want to do some Bouguereau. And I thought what I would be doing is some William Adolph Bouguereau when I got onto Twitch. But then I found out that they won't allow like his most famous pieces to be done because of the nudity in it, and it kind of derailed my plan, so I had to go with people who painted just as good as he did. And that, to me, landed me in the Dutch Masters, and that's kind of why I landed in the Baroque period, because of the quality of the painting. Even though it's bloody mystery time. As I said, I have absolutely no idea how these people were, well, nobody does, where they were trained, how they were trained, who trained them, where it came from, on and on and on and on. It's absolutely the most frustrating thing you ever saw, because no matter where you look, there just isn't any information. I mean, there's secondary information, but there isn't primary information, and that's really what I'm looking for. Like, how the hell did they Who taught them how to paint like this? Like we know in gray, you know, that's not a secret. But the Dutch guys, now mind you, I mean, fairness, it is 1640, so you know you're talking getting up to 500 years ago. You know, like, so it's not like it's in Wikipedia, but still, the art sleuths are hard at it because if they can find out, it will make a huge difference because it'll change a lot of the artwork that's out there. In other words, like, who the hell painted this? Well, we're getting to a point from a forensic art perspective that that's getting closer and closer all the time. And thank God, because you get to a point where there's a ton of questions you want to answer. And the written word and recollections and biographies and sales and all the things that went down over the years, you just can't discern enough information on them. And so the consequence of that is pretty simple, is that you have to go right to the paintings. And when you think about it, there's probably people out there who own a Vermeer or a whatever and don't even know it. Somewhere. Who knows? Could be. Wouldn't that be a find? It's happened. I mean, it's not like it's not going to happen. It has happened. So, let's keep our fingers crossed. It would be nice. The place where I'd look, though, was the Hermitage. Really. There's more uncatalogued work in there than anywhere else. All thanks to Catherine the Great, who was a great art lover and spent her whole life collecting art and lived in the right time period as well and had unlimited funds. Mind you, those funds were the funds of the people of Russia, but she had discretionary spending, and by God, she used it to acquire art, because the Hermitage was her palace originally. And it's one place I have never visited, but it's on my bucket list. But will I ever make it there? I don't know. Maybe. But the way politics are going, it doesn't look like it. The world is no longer a happy place. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 dee 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 da 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 Here again. Please don't mind that I hum along as I paint. And it really does sound out there like London and the Blitz, I'll tell you. Da, 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 Happy days are here again, sky above. This guy, see, this is what the bugger did. He went in here and he changed the tone again, see? And I mean bugger in the most genial way. Because I've been actually praising this praise, actually. Like, whoa, man. You didn't miss a trick. And frankly, I'm also at a point where I'm in a situation whereby I'm no longer thinking about some of these pieces as, oh, if I had done that in oil. No, now it's, how am I going to do it in acrylic? Which is nice because the oil painting techniques are kind of now receding, which I've been working towards, because when you paint in oil for so long, and then you're painting like oil, then you keep thinking like, yeah, if it was oil I would just do this. Well, it's finally started to wane, and that is a good thing for me anyway. Because it takes that it takes out that contrary technique stuff out of your head, which you have to almost fight against when you're, or I did anyway, when I started doing these techniques. Like, well, if I had oil I would just do this. Yeah, well, yeah, you're not using oil, are you? So get it out. That doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that you've just you're still thinking about a different medium than you're using. And that really isn't that much fun, to be honest with you. Da, 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 da. Da. The skies above. True again. I think the worst part was the worst one. I mean, not worst. I don't mean bad, good, or that way. I just mean that the most difficult one was the girl in the red hat. My God. To get it to that size and have the right tones in. Man, oh man, oh man, that guy drove me nuts. It wasn't easy to do, but perseverance, amongst other things, I guess, paid off, and I got it. The other thing was doing that watercolor, because it was a commission that came along, and I'm not really in a watercolor state, as I said. Kind of twigged my mind a little bit also, that said, why the hell are you doing? What's so much easier in watercolor? And frankly, it is. It's way easier to do this stuff in watercolor. And so that kind of was stirring around in there too. And in a way, I almost wished I hadn't done that commission. But, well, that's not something that's really, really true, because, to be honest with you, as a professional artist, whatever comes along, I do. I always have. If you're willing to pay, then I do it. And that's just the way it is. I mean, all these years, that's exactly what I do. So I'm not going to change horses midstream, so to speak. But I've also thought about maybe just retiring from professional art. Not art, but just professional art. And just do what I want. Because it's been a long time. I mean, really it is. It's been a long time. And also too, I find that, you know, once stuff starts to sell, the demands, like, I have an American, he's not an agent, he's a seller for me that sells my work, and he can't, I don't think, understand why, if certain art just sells, right, why I just don't produce more. Well, it's not really that easy. to do. I mean, he doesn't understand that he's not an artist. He's an art lover, but he's not an artist. So you have that as well, and I've been really thinking about maybe finishing that chapter as well, and just retiring into peaceful bliss, you know? Bliss, not blitz, bliss. But we'll see. I don't know. I've made that kind of noise before, and frankly, he's talked it out of me. And it's pretty easy to talk me out of it, simply because he goes out and sells more. He says, well, you know, this is really popular. Okay. And in a way, too, it's unfair because, I mean, he's representing me, so people where he sells the work are asking him for more, and he's passing that on as a good thing, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes to be paid for your work. But it is, I'm not fixing shoes here, you know, like it's a different thing altogether, and that's what most people who don't produce art don't understand. It's not just about screwing in a light bulb. It's creating the stuff, and that's why I like this so much, because it's so relaxing. I mean, it's just it's creativity, but on a different level. It's an interpretation as opposed to creating brand new art, and it does have its merits, I gotta tell you. Because it's very relaxing to do this type of work. Where it isn't relaxing, well, it's relaxing, but not as relaxing as doing the other stuff. And I'm truly considering that, but we'll see. I mean, you've done something all your life, you know. Sometimes you just start to think, well, you know what? I just want to paint what I want to paint. Because I know what sells, and I know what's trendy, and I know what goes in, and I know what people want, and I know how to do all that. But sometimes I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily like the artwork that's popular, if that makes sense. Like, you go, yeah, I know, people like it, but I don't like trendy art, so to speak. You know, I don't like that. And if you want to sell a lot, you kind of have to sell trendy art, because that's what people will buy. You know, they watch a TV show, they see it on a wall, and they go, I need one of those for my living room. Well, yeah, you do, and I can supply it, but it's not, yeah. And I know why they like dealing with me, my agent, because he knows and I know it's about, well, he's professional, well, so am I. So he knows that if he needs certain stuff, then I'll produce it. And I always have. But it doesn't mean that it's as fun as it used to be. Because to be honest with you, comes a point where you kind of say, you know, maybe, oh, there's a big one. Hope you heard that. Wow. I don't know if the holiday's in the 20, and I guess it is in the U.S. as well. I'm not quite sure. I'm putting some iron oxide down here because he changed the tones again on me. And I noticed it, but I didn't realize how far they went until I really looked here. And they go down way far. So I'm going to change the toning down here to get that. Happy days are here again, the skies above. Anyway, the next piece that I decided on, again, is a portrait. I'm going to do it in Bouguereau style. And Bouguereau style was very realistic, so that's what I like. I like realistic art. That's my personal likes. I know people sometimes say to me, but you know, your painting really is kind of, doesn't really, you know, sometimes the stuff you do, yeah, well, it doesn't mean that I don't know how to paint the other stuff. You're asking me two different things. What I can paint and what I like. Well, maybe what I like is different from what I paint. Different thing altogether. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Here again, the skies above are clear again. Happy days are here. Here again, happy days. Here again. Da 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 da. Sky above are blue again. Da 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 Now in this painting, the sheets and bath stuff that he did is very, very complicated to do. Like well, the sheets or pillows or whatever the hell she's sitting on and the edge of the bath. Yes, very complicated to do. But no matter at all. Now I want to put just the tiniest little bit of yellow ochre in here as a glaze right here, because that's how he marries the two areas together. Just like that. Just like that. And then he throws more light into here. And he throws more light into here. Da 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 da. Tell you one little thing I found odd about board is when you first go the first coat on the gesso, not so much the gesso, I guess on like the underpainting and because you know you think it's dry and it's really not. It's if you wet it enough, out it comes, and not everywhere too, just places, and it's kind of weird because it's dry. But I don't think the adherence to the gesso is at a max yet. That's what I think it is. I haven't quite figured it out, to be honest with you, but I will. And when I do, I will tell you. I promise. Da, 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 da. Happy days are here again. The sky above is blue again. And again, happy day. Here again, the sky above are blue again. Happy days again. You see, even up in here, he toned it just slightly down, right at the shoulder blade, which is correct, but he doesn't like put the shoulder blade in. What he does is he just puts a little tone in, which is amazing because it works. Who's it thunk it? You know, like, so the trick is to get that blend of color in order to show that on this scale. And get it in the right places, in the right tone range. And let me tell you, it isn't easy. Mind you, if it was easy, I wouldn't do it. And he's also got a fairly distinct spinal line right there, which again is risky, but he gets away with it. Which is why I selected this, to be honest with you. It's a real challenge in tone. And then he comes right up to there. So it's extremely subtle, but extremely effective. Which I just got in here. Man, oh man. Now I'm using transparent white, as you can well imagine, because this has to be translucent, the whites on the skin tones. But there'll be titanium white later on, where I want to really kick a highlight really high. I don't know, for instance, if there will be on the draperies and whatnot, but I don't know offhand whether there'll be any on the skin, because I'll only do it if it needs it. So if it needs it, yeah. If it doesn't, I won't. And why would you? Why would you if you don't need it? Da, 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 da. The skies above are blue again. How days are through again. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue. This area down here of the silks, man, I can't wait to get to those. They will be fun, because I gotta make it look like silk. And silk is hard to paint, to be honest with you. And the reason it's hard to paint is because you gotta make it shiny, but you can't make it too shiny. I think I mentioned why in Belize I didn't do many, or I only did a couple of oils, because the bloody oil wouldn't dry. It refused to dry, literally. One oil I had took like 12 weeks to dry. 12 weeks! That was just to the touch, it really wasn't dry. Mind you, considering it takes about 100 years for oil to really dry. So. And then it cracks. It's not that outrageous, but still, I mean, to not be able to work on it, it just, everything you did, you had to plan like, for 12 weeks before you could get at it again. Like, holy Moses. There's a limit. Hence, you don't have a lot of oil paintings in Belize, so nobody will do them because of the climate. I don't know if it's like that in every... The only saltwater climate I ever really lived in was Belize. So I don't know if it's like that all over the place, but in Belize it was. Humidity. Hell, you couldn't... You know soda biscuits, like for soup? If you didn't put them in a sealed container, well, next time you went through them, they were soggy. I kid you not. I had never lived in a climate like that before. But you get used to it, so I gotta tell you that too. You can get used to it. But after a while, you start saying to yourself, yeah, I'm used to it, but do I love it as much as I did when I first got here? And the answer to that is no. Sooner or later, you kind of get tired of it. I mean, it's the same all the time. And now I know why people in California, Los Angeles, head up to the mountains for vacations. They want to get away from the climate. Because it's perfect all the time. Now, if you haven't experienced that, I completely understand, because that was me. I said I didn't care. I didn't mind. I wanted it warm, and I did. And by God, I got it warm. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean you want it forever. Forever is a long time. And sooner or later, I said to myself, self, are you sure you want this all the time? And the answer was no. I'm missing the winter. Can you believe that? I actually said to myself, self, do you really miss the winter? And I said, believe it or not, yeah, I do. It took me a while to get there, but I did. So, I think the best thing to say about all this stuff is that whatever your plans are, don't make them too permanent, because you never know, you might change your mind. Now, knowing that is why I was able to leave Belize so easily. Because although I was sure when I went down there, some little guy on my shoulder said, you don't know 100%. Maybe, I doubt it, maybe you'll end up missing the climate you originally came from. And by God, it happened. So I said to the little guy on my shoulder, thank you for not having me commit too heavily down there. So yeah, I owned a car and all that stuff, but I didn't invest in Belize. And God, am I glad I didn't. Because when I wanted to go, I just went. I didn't have to think too hard about it. The only thing I miss about Belize now is the people. That I miss. But, like they say, there's always Facebook. It's true. There's Facebook. So, you get to talk to people on a regular basis. How they doing? And some Belizeans, I still send them money and stuff. And people I got to know. But I don't need to be there. And also you end up missing your family too. Especially if you're like me. I have grandchildren. Well, the kids were really little back then, but as they get a little bit older, you go, well, you know, you're missing a part that you'll never be able to recover, which is true as they get older. So I said to myself again, self, time to get out of these other hills. So home I went. Ah, come on. Sorry, I just mixed up some color here that was way too. Just the wrong color. That's all. No big deal. Just as a pain. You gotta do it. When it wasn't the color you were looking for. Da 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 Happy days are here again. Skies above, blue again. Happy days. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. The skies above again. Happy days again. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. Sky above is blue again. Happy days again. Happy days again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days. Da 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 the skies above are blue again. Happy days are through again. Da 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 the skies above are blue again. Happy day all through again. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days are. True again, happy days are here again. Da 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 da. Skies above, blue again. Happy days, true again. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy day. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. This again is the micro toning that I have to do in order to get this skin toning proper. Because as you get farther into the tonal map, you just, even things that you looked to make sure you're going to do it right becomes more complicated. Because you're not actually painting it, you're planning it. Well, you plan it as best you can, but once you get to the painting part, well, you start seeing things because you're really, like, you study it, but you don't study it as if when you're painting it. When you go inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter, you know, millimeter actually by millimeter, and you see little tiny changes, and frankly, it's amazing because you never, except drawing from life, you just don't get that in reference, or you didn't anyway, until they started out with the photography that's available now that the museums are putting out. Like, it's just unbelievable. I mean, like, they've outdone themselves. And I understand why. They want to show the painting as clearly as humanly possible. Well, before, that was all done with books and photographs. Well, now it's online, and man, it's incredible. It's incredible. Yes, it's incredible. And this, to be honest with you, happened in a very short period of time, because this kind of stuff wasn't available when I was doing this 4 years ago. But, you know, by the same token, all the TVs have changed, and hell, we're not even at 1080 anymore. We're at 4K, so the images are getting better and better. I'm just blown away even looking at the Google. What do they call it? Featured photos from Google. My God, some of the paintings, it's just, you can see the strokes. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You have to step back from the big screen TV just to actually see the painting, the same as you would in the museum. So it's amazing. And I know if you're living it, you don't notice it. But the only reason I'm really noticing is because I was away. And where I was, believe me, it would be like TV was in the 70s. That was your equivalency. It was so bad I didn't even watch TV. Netflix on the lowest possible bandwidth allocation. Just terrible. And it's not like they don't have the technology, it's just they can't afford it to broadcast that kind of stuff. But again, I come back and voila, it's here. I can't believe it. So when I first started looking, I was going to do doing a Vermeer, and I went, okay, well, let's see if I can find a good photograph. Photograph? Jesus. Girl with a pearl earring? I could see every brushstroke. Every brushstroke. Well, if you can see every brushstroke, then your pattern is there, right? Like you know. You just know what you're doing, what you're doing. And that's exactly what I found. So I've asked my son and a few people, like, when did this come about? And they go, what? I said, well, when did it all change? And they go, what? And then I realized that it changed slowly and nobody noticed. The quality of imagery got so much better that it was night and day. Literally night and day. In such a short period of time. 4 years. Well, maybe that's a long period of time when it comes to, I guess, to TV and electronics. Kind of makes you wonder what's on the horizon, right? I mean, but I was absolutely stunned that they had this available. So I went, forget that. Because the way I used to do it, I would search and search and search to find the best possible photograph of something I could possibly get. And knowing that it was, even then, you just didn't have the tonal range that you needed. But then you had to guess. Well, there's no guesswork now. None. It's all there. It's all there. All you have to do is paint it. And by God, that's what I'm doing. By God. I don't know if you've ever heard that guy on YouTube. Earl, I forget his name, but anyway. Ernest, Earl, whatever. But he did phone pranks. Oh my God. That was his line. By God. By God. How big a boy are you? By God. I'm going down there for some, give you a good ass whooping. A good old-fashioned country ass whooping. God, it was funny. I think he's still on, but I haven't listened to him in a long time. I think I heard them all, and that was the thing. But people, oh my God. He had them going. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days are blue again. Da, da, da. There's a little spot there on the board. It's wrecking havoc with a little place here, so I'll have to figure a way to fix that. Cry havoc and unleash the dogs of war. Da 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 da. Oh no, come on. Come on. No, that's not the tone for there. Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Happy days. Happy days are here again. He put the most maddening amount of yellow oxide into his color, so I gotta reproduce that. And to reproduce it, I have to literally put it down and go, well, that's the process, isn't it? To get that flesh tone that he was able to pick up. And although it's a just want to bury that. Happy days are here. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. What the hell is he doing? Well, I want to get that flesh tone, that color he's got. And in order to do that, I had to throw on some yellow oxide. And I mean throw. I'm just spreading it out now. But it also gives you more of an gray look. So you like to put that into his paintings. And And he liked it, then I'm gonna like it. Because I'm doing him. I can change it anytime I want, but that's not what I want. I want in gray. In gray. And by God, in gray is what I'm gonna get. If it kills me. So now I'm going back over and oh man, yeah, difference, yeah. I gotta say, he was right. It gives the flesh a little more horsepower. If that's the correct word. Maybe it isn't, I don't know. But it gives you more of his skin tone. The colors he liked in skin tones. As opposed to the colors that I prefer in skin tones. The skies above are blue again. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. The skies above are blue again. Happy days. I don't remember having painted this size full body nude. Well, no, not in acrylic. I mean, I've done it a lot in watercolor, but not acrylic. And it's fascinating, I gotta tell you. I don't know what it is, but the longer you look at the color, the more you start to see, you know? It's almost like a work in progress almost, you know, like you get to follow you start making out his pattern of colors and how he did it, and you basically, it's an analysis, and your eye starts to separate the colors to what they are, and it's exciting, really. It is, because it's you get to say to yourself, aha, je comprends. Da 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 And I think we're going to call it a night, folks. I think that will do it for tonight. So, thank you for watching, for those that did. And we shall return, hopefully tomorrow. Good night, good night, good night. Mm-hmm.